It is time for Storm Watch here at the Weather Channel. I'm Paul Emick. We'll look at our active weather for the contiguous 48, including a lot of rain across the southern U.S., even a bit still around Detroit. We also need to talk about tropics with two systems of concern. We'll begin the Storm Watch with our tropical update now and look at one system very close to Bermuda and another across the Yucatan Peninsula. So those are two to watch, one in the Atlantic and one in the Gulf. And this one is kind of on the way up toward intensification. This one is winding itself down, so kind of a unique contrast to that as well. Tropical Depression 11, sustained winds of 30 miles per hour. It's presently near Cozumel, Mexico. Now, that little L there represents the tropical depression itself. It's over the Yucatan Peninsula. Now, that presents a couple of problems for its continued development. As it continues to move across land, it's not able to tap that rich fuel source that allows it to get what it needs for fuel. But once it does move across the peninsula and over into the Gulf again, that's a spot where it can intensify. And it looks like that is exactly what it will be doing as it continues to move across the next 24 hours or so when it gets back in the Gulf. Watch out. We'll keep you on top of the situation of the Weather Channel, providing more current information on that as that becomes available. Kind of losing a bit of daylight here, so the image kind of flashing a bit, but there's Bermuda right there, and our system that is a tropical storm now but has been weakening Florence is still off to the southwest. Here's the present position. It is 540 miles to the west-southwest of Bermuda, but it continues to be a threat. Now, it's drifting southeastward, sustained winds of 50, but the indications are from the way it should be steered, it should take more of a northeasterly trajectory. As it does that, it could mean problems toward Bermuda. We already have some tropical storm watches in effect here, so stay tuned, especially in Bermuda, for complete information on this system. But at least the good news with it is that it's weakening, continuing to weaken, so very good news with that. Another vantage point here on what's taking place around the Yucatan with more of our system there of note moving into the Gulf, and this one could be intensifying to a tropical storm. If it does so, it should go on and become Tropical Storm Gordon. That's the name that it will be assigned. Looking at some images here, kind of running out of daylight, so the image is kind of fading a bit, but nothing really of a great note taking place across most of the Atlantic at the present time. Across the contiguous 48, mentioned our rainfall in the Midwest, that we have a bit of.
Tropical Storm Gordon has increased in strength. This is the Tropical Update and Storm Watch. I'm Bob Stokes. On this Saturday morning, we are watching a tropical storm in the eastern Gulf of Mexico. There are tropical storm warnings in effect for a portion of the west coast of Florida, and there are hurricane watches in effect. Let's get the latest on Tropical Storm Gordon. As of 11 o'clock, it is centered 355 miles southwest of Tampa, Florida, with winds of 65 miles per hour around the center of circulation. Now, keep in mind that we have winds of extending some 100 miles from the center of tropical storm force. Therefore, we have some tropical storm warnings that have been issued for portions of the west coast of Florida. But it's moving toward the northeast at 9 miles per hour, and there's really nothing significant meteorologically, no upper level winds that are expected to veer it from this same path. It's expected to continue toward the northeast until landfall, although it's too early to pinpoint a landfall situation or location. 29.29 inches is the pressure right now, or 992 millibars. Now, here is the hurricane watch. A hurricane watch means that there is the possibility of hurricane force conditions in existence now. From Apalachicola, Florida, down to Bonita Beach, Florida, that was extended north and west from earlier. It had been from Bonita Beach on up to the Suwannee River, but that's extended north and west from earlier. And also, as I mentioned, tropical storm warnings in effect from Suwannee River down to Bonita Beach because of these tropical storm force winds extending out some 100 miles from the center of circulation. Now, most of the heavy rainfall is occurring to the east of the center, so even though you live in Miami on the East Coast, you could still see some very heavy rainfall. But right now, we're very concerned about the west coast of Florida. But even as far west as New Orleans, you need to really closely monitor Tropical Storm Gordon. We've got a trough of low pressure across the Gulf and, of course, a subtropical ridge. And this is all combining to steer it in a northeasterly direction. But we'll be watching it. No significant strengthening is expected, no underlying significant, but strengthening is expected. The forecast does have it becoming a hurricane. So strengthening is expected. How rapid and how much, of course, remains to be seen. But you can see the wet weather now in the eastern Gulf, southeastern Gulf, a lot of wet weather, and this is on top of the rains that fell yesterday, Fort Myers, a lot of heavy rain, and this is the projected path of what is now Tropical Storm Gordon. Often it is right in this The center is where we find it, but this could be adjusted accordingly as we go throughout the weekend into the first part of next week. That's the latest on Tropical Storm Gordon. Dr. Steve Lyons will have more coming up.
Picture this. Carl.
Tropical Storm Gordon continues to track towards the Florida west coast. We'll have the latest on Gordon's progress.
And it feels like fall from New England to the upper Midwest and on down to Atlanta, while folks in the Southwest just can't seem to shake off those hot days of summer. Hello and welcome to Weather Center. I'm Kelly Cass.
And I'm Bill Keneally. Flash flood watches and now tropical storm warnings, Kelly, for the area roughly from south of Fort Myers to well north of Tampa, bracing for, at the head end of all this, some gusty winds and very squally type of weather late today and tonight.
That's right, and hurricane watches as well, because we do expect it to become a hurricane eventually.
And let's take a look, see what's happening here on the satellite picture. Pretty well defined looking system, much better defined than yesterday. As you can see, it's gaining its symmetry, its classical look. There's that ball of convection firing right near that center, and we usually look for that for a sign of strengthening. The hurricane center has had the aircraft in there too, and some of the flight level winds they are finding now upwards of 80 miles per hour, pretty much to the northeast of the center. And once again, it's also over very warm water. Here's your 11 a.m. advisory. The center roughly at 23.9 north, 86.1 west, 355 miles southwest of Tampa. Top winds now bumped up a bit to 65 miles per hour, and the track still roughly northeasterly at 9 miles per hour. Pressure down a millibar to 992 millibars. Again, we have our hurricane watches from Bonita Beach all the way up and around Apalachicola, including the Tampa Bay area, Sarasota, Bradenton, as well as the city of Fort Myers. Satellite picture really bears out the sense that it is strengthening. Nice curvature. There is some drier air to the west. There's also some upper-level steering winds that will eventually have an impact. Let's get the latest on all that, on where it may track and what the implications may be for the Tampa Bay area. For that, let's head to Dr. Steve Lyons.
Well, thanks, Bill, and let's look back at that satellite image and put a couple of features on there. Here's the latest visible satellite image, and the circulation center is right under that area of deep thunderstorms. It's starting to form what we call a CDO, or central dense overcast, which is a sign of development. So it's very close to hurricane strength and may become a hurricane later this afternoon or tonight. Now, there's a convergence between this air from the west, that's that air over here, and the air out of the south, and producing some very heavy bands of rain. They had 10 inches of rain over the last 24 hours over western Cuba, and they're still getting a lot more. They actually had 10 inches of rain in Cancun. You're drying out now. But that rain area is moving up toward the northeast along with the cyclone, and so we expect that the rain is going to be a big problem. So with our impacts, we think it'll be a hurricane, but Category 1, and so with the sturdy structures we have in Florida, we don't think the wind impact is going to be too high by itself. Rainfall could be high, so we're watching that very carefully. Waves don't appear to be a big problem along the west coast of Florida, but surge could be a problem depending on where it hits. Some areas have a potential for very high surge. For example, up in this area, very high surge as high as 8 to 10 feet from a Category 1. Farther south in the Tampa Bay area, 3 to 5 foot range, locally a little bit higher. Cedar Key up here could be a very high surge on the order of 6 to 8 feet. And you can see the impact of inland rainfall. This is a very, very vulnerable graphic. In other words, it can change by the hour, so to speak, but just to give you an idea. By tomorrow morning, it's going to be very close to getting close to the Florida coast and then heading up. And keep in mind, even though you may not be in this swath here, you could still get some significant impact from rainfall to the southeast and also to the northwest of that track as things change. Let's get back to the studio now with Bill.
All right, Steve, thank you very much. Again, the leading edge of the rain in the Tampa Bay area. As Steve said, that's not with the tropical storm. It's with a trough ahead of a cold front. So you have rain falling on saturating ground, and then more rain with the tropical storm or hurricane falling on already saturated ground down the road. So watch the situation. As Steve said, it will have some serious implications. Pretty heavy rain going earlier north of Clearwater from Dunedin to Tarpon Springs. That rain slackening a bit, also catching a break in southern Hillsborough County. However, that said, plenty more where that came from. Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Tampa, Sarasota, Fort Myers, even down to near Naples under a flood watch. And that flood watch will likely go through the night tomorrow night as we see it now. High pressure trying to build into the